What is going on, college basketball fans? My name is Zach Greene, and today I'm joined by fellow Hoosiers Evan Kamikow and Jevan McCoskey, who cover Indiana basketball for IUS TV. And on the other side of the ball, we have Brent Huot, who is the founder of The Numbers Guy and Sports Analytics Guru, and Roshan Fernandez, who covers Syracuse basketball for the Daily Orange. How's it going, guys?
Going well. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. I'm excited to do this, and I'm excited. So let's get right into it. So obviously, Syracuse hasn't looked too good on the season so far. They're 3-3, and on the other side of the ball, we have Indiana, who's 6-0, but they haven't really played a Power 5 team yet. What are your guys' thoughts early on in the season? Let's start with you, Evan and Jevan.
Yeah, So I've starting with IU. Trace Jackson Davis has been the player that we all thought that he was going to be in the last game, putting up 43 points, an Assembly Hall record, the highest amount of points anybody has scored in college basketball this season. But looking at the game against Syracuse, what I'm most excited for to see is because I don't think Trace is going to have that impactful of a game playing against the zone without being able to shoot the ball at a high rate. I don't think that he's going to have the most he's not going to have as impactful as a game as he did in the last game when he put up 43. I'm excited to watch Xavier Johnson. Xavier Johnson has had many times he's played this team many times coming from Pitt last year in the ACC. I'm very excited to see. I watched a little bit of film on him last year when he played them, and what he does so well is that he attacks the middle of the zone, which is the best way to beat a zone because once the ball's in the middle of the zone, it can go to any corner, back out to the top, and even lob to the rim. So that's what I'm excited to see, and it's definitely something that we've seen thus far, and I'm going to look to see moving forward.
And to expand a little bit on Jevan, because he pretty much hit most of the points, it's the guard play that's really been interesting lately. I mean, you've had Rob Finney go down with a leg injury that still looks apparent. He's definitely questionable again tomorrow. So who's going to step up? Is it going to be Lander? Is it going to be Xavier? Is it going to be Scoop, Tamar Bates? That's the biggest question to me, and that's what I'm looking forward to seeing is how the IU guards are going to perform tomorrow night.
All right, how about you guys from Syracuse?
Yeah, I can let Roshan jump into it first if he wants.
Yeah, I think one thing to note is obviously the Syracuse defensive play. I saw on Twitter some defensive stat through KenPom, which is saying that this Syracuse team is probably the worst defensive team that's existed since KenPom started in 1997, and so. Granted, it's been 6 games, but that's not a good sign for this Syracuse unit. And when you combine a Syracuse team that isn't shooting well, like we saw against VCU, with the Syracuse team that isn't defending well, it's a big problem. Obviously, they kind of pieced that together against Arizona State last week, but it's really up in the air in terms of what we're going to get out of the Syracuse team right now.
Yeah, so Roshan jumped on the 2 big topics that I wanted to talk about in terms of what needs to change for Syracuse. That's going to be the defense and the shooting. Games in which Syracuse is shooting above 40% from behind the arc, they're 3-0. Under 40%, they're 0-3. Buddy Boeheim and Cole Swider are combined shooting under 30%. They're supposed to be the 2 sharpshooters on this team, along with Joe Girard. On 12.5 shared attempts per game, they're shooting less than 30%. It's around a 29.8% clip. And additionally, the defense, this is something that Brent Axe put into his Syracuse.com recap. It was called Lost on an Island, I believe, referring to their battle for Atlantis. That the points per game right now is at 78.5 points per game compared to 70.1 points per game last year. And over the past 4 games, Syracuse is letting up 87 points per game in the 2-3 zone.
Yeah, and I think going off of that too, if we're talking about both strengths and weaknesses, we both just mentioned a bunch of weaknesses, but I think one bright spot to look at, especially from the last week or two for Syracuse, is kind of the development of Jesse Edwards at center. We talked about the defensive issues, but Jesse has done a really good job on the offensive end. He's providing a lot of options inside, and we've kind of seen a little bit of Joe Girard finding him inside, him dunking or kind of laying it in. And I think if Syracuse can continue to develop him, continue to use him inside, that should open up looks on the outside for Joe Girard, for Cole Swider, and for Buddy. So I guess kind of going inside and driving inside more, it hasn't been something that Syracuse has done with its centers, but if it's able to do that, that's really a room for growth.
So real quick, just to jump in on the defensive standpoint, because we all know Syracuse, their identity is built on the defensive end of that 3-point shot. But when you look at Indiana this year, they've been an elite defensive team. I know we haven't really played the biggest level of competition, but looking at numbers, 2-point percentage allowed, we're first in the country at 35%. And the 3-point percentage allowed, we're 19th in the country at 25. So one thing Indiana does really well is run those 3-point shooters off of the 3-point line and try to get them to drive the lane. And then they're always met at the rim, with whether it's Race Thompson, Michael Durr, or even especially Trace Jackson Davis. So Buddy Boeheim is going to have a big game if Syracuse wants to be in this game. But what Indiana does so well on the defensive end is run players off of the 3-point line. So who knows? It's going to be a tough game for Buddy and Syracuse all the way around because of that elite Indiana defense.
And even with Indiana, too, is the shooting hasn't always been there this season. We've seen at times them struggle from whether it's the free throw line as well as the 3-point line. And on top of that, well, their shooting has been hit or miss. Turnovers are a big question with Indiana this season. And Syracuse has that defense that can be able to force turnovers. And IU is very susceptible to turnovers. So that's another kind of weakness for this Indiana team, which will be really fun to watch in the Syracuse game.
Yeah, I guess now that you brought it up, Jevan, Mike Woodson, first-year coach here at Indiana and former player, you kind of talked about it and mentioned it, that, one of the biggest things I think his the first thing he said at his press conference is he's going to change the culture. He's going to change the defensive side of the ball. And it seems like he's done that so far. You brought it up as well that we haven't really played anyone, but this team looks reamped. They look like they're playing with a sort of fire under them on the defensive side of the ball. With that said, how have you guys felt about Mike Woodson so far?
So I think tomorrow, outside of St. John's, because St. John's is a good basketball team, tomorrow is going to be the real true first test because it's against an ACC team and it's on the road. You're not playing in Assembly Hall. So tomorrow you're going to see how this team plays on the road. But this is a defensive first. This team, their identity is defense and whatever Trace Jackson Davis does, because what he does on offense, that's where the rest of this team goes. But I think Mike Woodson has done a great job. And listen, he said it from the very beginning. The first 6 months of him being here, they worked on nothing but defense. They didn't even put offensive plays in until very shortly before going to the Bahamas. So you're seeing exactly what Mike Woodson has worked on, and that is defensive intensity, defensive efficiency, and then the offense will come. I mean, he's a smart offensive coach. He's worked in the NBA for over 30 years, was a point guard in college and an NBA. He knows offense, and that will come. But I think he's done a great job thus far with the talent that we've been able to play, or lack thereof, and the talent that we have, being able to see Trace make those next steps. He's using his right hand. He hasn't taken as many jump shots as we'd like to see, but the fact that he's taken any at all is an upgrade from last year. We're seeing a higher rate of 3-point shots being taken and being made. Like Evan mentioned, that the turnovers are going to have to come down, and that's something he's definitely talked on. He wants to see 12 or less every game. But I'm very happy with what Woodson has done thus far.
And to me, the only thing I'll really say, because Jevan did a great job there, is the change of culture that you see. It's more connected to the past and the history of Indiana basketball, because this game really tomorrow night is so important because of the history of these two programs. They're two powerhouse programs in college basketball, and that's what makes this intriguing. And Woodson's now going back to accepting the culture of the past while moving forward and honoring that culture. And I think that's something that has Indiana fans really excited about when he, in his short tenure so far.
I am kind of excited to get like the other side perspective, the people from Syracuse. So like Brent or Roshan, like, what do you guys think Woodson has done? Like, do you think he's done a great job so far, or what he's supposed to be doing, or how do you guys see it?
I think
go ahead, Roshan.
Oh, I was going to say my answer to that is somewhat limited in that I don't know a whole lot about Indiana basketball, but I would say that kind of looking at their schedule and looking at what they've done, obviously it's been impressive, but I think the note there is that it's so early on, right? Like beating a team like Louisiana by like 50 points, what does it mean? Like, it doesn't actually mean anything, right? And so I think that, yeah, like this team ranks really well defensively, and you guys all touched on that, but like we're saying that based off of 5 games, 6 games against, really weak non-conference teams, and which would be shocking if these games are even close, right? So I guess I'm not answering your question, but my answer to that would be that it's way too early to say anything. And I think that's why this game is important too, is because it's going to be a real kind of test of like, how good is this Indiana team really? And like, how good is this Syracuse team really too?
Yeah, Roshan pretty much summed it up. I was going to say the sample size is just so small right now. Obviously, for a first-year coach to start off 6-0, you'd have a hard time saying that they're not doing the right things. But I think if we were to all meet up again 4 or 5 weeks from now, I might be able to give you a more definitive answer of what I think of him.
All right, guys, shifting sides to the Syracuse program. Jim Boeheim's been the head coach since 1967. He's 77 years old. He keeps going. I don't know how. How have Syracuse fans liked Jim Boeheim so far this season? I know, the 3-3. I'm sure they can't be too happy.
I can start off. Like you said, he's been doing this for so long. I spend a lot of time on Twitter, and you'll see some casual fans. Oh, he's on the hot seat. It's his time. He's too old. I think you really just have to trust the process. He's been here so many times before. And sure, if we go back to the early 2010s, those are the teams that are starting off 18-0, 19-2, whatever it might be. But it's a veteran group, but with a veteran group with a lot of transfers coming in. And I think the team just needs a little bit more time to gel, learn a little bit more about Jim Boeheim's system, learn more how to play the 2-3 zone, where you're transitioning on defense, when the ball is being moved from the left to the right, things like that. But in terms of Boeheim, I don't think anybody's worried about his performance. Roshan, you can elaborate further, I'm sure, but I think everyone knows it's Jim Boeheim. He's been here so many times before, and he knows what he's doing.
Right. I think Brent hit that exactly on the head, in that like no one's worried about Jim Boeheim's job security. And I think the other piece of it is like Jim Boeheim doesn't seem that worried either. Like from his post-game press conferences, he hasn't been, obviously he's annoyed, he's pissed off. That's rightfully so with any coach who's just lost a game. But like he's not like, we have to hit the brakes. Like there's something drastically wrong with the Syracuse team. He's just like, it's going to take us time to figure this out. We have a bunch of transfers. We're learning the 2-3 zone. It's still an adjustment for Jesse at center. It's still an adjustment for freshman Benny Williams. Like it's all the things that come with like early in a season. And so Jim Boeheim doesn't seem worried. And so I don't know from a Syracuse fans point of view like what the outlook should be, but it doesn't seem like Boeheim's worried. And I guess for a fan, maybe give it a little bit more time before you really do worry.
Yeah. So shifting to the game now. I'll start with you, Jevan, and then Evan, you can go after him. What are some keys for the Hoosiers to pull off a victory tomorrow night?
Yeah, so the two things that I'm going to look at are turnovers and 3-point percentage efficiency. And Evan's probably going to say the same thing.
I was going to say the exact same thing. Those are the two things.
So I'll just touch on the turnover standpoint, because like Evan mentioned earlier, it has been a problem with Rob Finney down, especially. Lander and Xavier Johnson have a tendency to kind of move too fast at certain points. And I think there was a game 3 games ago where they combined for 8 turnovers. That can't happen, especially tomorrow, because this is the best team we're going to play, the best team that we've played thus far, and they will make you pay for it. And obviously, the more you turn the ball over, the less chances you have to score. And against this 2-3 defense, you're going to need every bucket that you can get. So that is my specific key. I think Mike Woodson has the perfect number, has to keep it under 12. And if not, he's mentioned it before, the guys are going to be running the next day. So keep it under 12. Xavier Johnson really needs to control the game. And if we do that, I think we have a good chance of winning this game.
And I'll touch on the other point, because we're not together, but those are the exact 2 points that I was going to make. Jevan's and Syracuse getting ready to cover the game. But if you look at this team, there's 2 things. It's the turnovers, which he mentioned perfectly, and it's the 3-point percent shooting. It's been a struggle the last couple of years for any real Hoosier team to take a step forward in their shooting. The free throw line last game against who did we play last game? It was Jackson State. It was very good. They had a high percentage from the line. I believe it was about 60-70%. So you want that to stay again. But even this game against Syracuse, this is a game where you're going to need to shoot the ball, because we won't always be able to penetrate the zone, and passing leads to open shots. It'll be important for Indiana to go at least, I'd like to see 4 of 12, 5 of 12 from the line in the first half, and replicate that for the second half. So somewhere around 60 to 70% shooting wise. I know that's a bit of a stretch, but especially with this team who has weapons outside against with Boeheim and Swider, you're going to need to shoot the ball well against Syracuse.
Yeah. And then why don't you go first, Brent? What are some keys for the Orange to pull off a victory tomorrow?
Yeah, so given our depth at the big man right now, considering we go from Jesse to Frankie, followed by Jimmy, who's really more of a wing in the zone, I think it's really important that Jesse Edwards stays out of foul trouble early. He's done a great job the past 2 games with that, but we just lean really heavily on him this year. Last year, his minute percentage was 14. It's gone up over 400% this season to around 62% of minutes played. And after that, Anselm is, with Jim Boeheim, he doesn't like to stretch the bench too far. So it's really important that when a guy's in, he's making the most of his time. And additionally, he's going to be taking care of the ball. Syracuse has had a really hard time breaking the press this season. Our 2 point guards, Joe Girard, his turnover percentage is at a career high, 23.6%. And Samir Torrance, our bench point guard, his turnover percentage is at 28%. Those numbers are really high. And it's going to be having to take care of the ball, because if you turn over the ball, you're not going to get up shots. If you don't get up shots, you're not going to make baskets.
Yeah, I think Brent hit on some really important things there. The only thing I would add to that is just Syracuse has got to shoot really well. They've got to be shooting lights out, and you can't have another 0 from 7 from the 3-point line performance from Cole Swider. Like that's not going to do it. And it seemed like he kind of got things going at the end of last week. But Cole Swider needs to be shooting well. Joe needs to be shooting well. Buddy needs to be shooting well. And Syracuse does have a good chance in this game. But, the minute that Cole starts breaking 2, 3, 4 threes in a row and keeps putting them up, then, he doesn't add a ton of value to this team. And that's where the questions kind of arise about leaving him on the court for Jim Boeheim. Is like, what does Cole bring defensively when he's not hitting shots? And so, long story short, Syracuse has got to hit shots.
Yeah, and I want to add one more thing before we move on quick, which is if you look at some of these 3-point percentages, like I think Joe Girard's shooting 56% from behind the arc this season. That other, 44% of shots, some of his shots have been extremely questionable, along with Cole Swider. Once he started to get his shots to fall during the Battle for Atlantis tournament, his shot selection was definitely questionable as well. So I think it's a huge thing. It's going to be when a player gets hot, kind of keeping it under control. I understand the occasional heat check here and there, but I think shot selection is going to be really important. You got 30 seconds per possession. If you have 22 seconds left on the clock, there's no need to force a shot.
All right. So for the casual average fan who might not be supporting either programs, I think it's important to elaborate for them, what players will be playing in this game that will be playing at the next level, because I'm sure there's a few. I'm sure you guys will elaborate on that. And I think it's also important that we haven't really mentioned it, but the past matchup there is Cody Zeller, Victor Oladipo from Indiana are both playing at the next level. I'm not exactly sure on Syracuse, but even going way back to 1987, this is really where their careers start. And so that's who should we expect out of these two teams to play at the next level?
For Indiana, there's one name and one name only right now. It's Trayce Jackson-Davis. He seems to be the one player, 40 the other night, ESPN player of the week last week. He seems to be that guy that's definitely going to take the next step. Now, do I think he's going to be a top 10 draft pick this season? If he keeps putting up numbers like that, absolutely. But he has to continue, and his shot has to get better. Another name for Indiana that I'll throw out that maybe not this year, but in a couple of years, Tamar Bates. He's somebody from IMG, freshman recruit by Woodson. That's a bright spot on this team, and those are the two names I would say, unless Jevan has another one. But a lot of good talent on this IU team.
Yeah, I mean, when you look across this team, obviously the name that pops out is Trayce Jackson-Davis. But without that jump shot, it's hard telling where he'll go and if he'll stay wherever he ends up going. So the jump shot has to come, but he definitely has the talent for sure to play at the next level. A little undersized for his position. But the way the NBA is going, if he gets a jump shot, he'll be able to play that position at that size. Tamar Bates, yes, he's a little young. I do like Xavier Johnson. I don't know how much I like him at the next level, but I think he has the ability and the skill to play at the next level. He's He's one of the fastest people I've ever seen with the ball in their hands. Has the ability to create off the dribble and create for his teammates. But yeah, the one name obviously that pops up to everybody is Trayce Jackson-Davis.
All right, Roshan, why don't you go first for Syracuse?
Yeah, I think the obvious answer here is Buddy Boeheim, preseason All-American. And I think the biggest question about Buddy is, can he play the way he played in March for an entire season? And that's the question every single Syracuse fan has. I'm sure that's the question Buddy has for himself too. And if he can, he definitely has NBA potential. And if he can't, then he's a little bit more on the border of, we're not really sure what's going to happen to him after college. Buddy said that his dream was always to play at Syracuse, and he never really thought about going to the NBA or anything like that. And honestly, I don't even think at the start of last season he thought that the NBA was a realistic thing for him. But so maybe he even kind of surprised himself there. But if Buddy can play the way he played last February, March, definitely NBA potential. And if not, we'll see.
Yeah, I think outside of Buddy Boeheim, it's a very talented team with a lot of talented players. I just don't see any of their skills really translating to the NBA. And even with Buddy Boeheim, like Roshan said, if he was able to sustain that level of performance for an entire season, yeah, I think he could. But I think already we're seeing that he's not able to do that. Again, small sample size. I know it's early, but averaging 20 points per game, I can't knock on that. I mean, that's an incredible feat at one of the highest levels of basketball. D1 after that, you have EuroLeague, NBA, and a few other leagues. But he's gotten a lot better at creating his own shot. He's gotten a lot better at driving to the basket. But that being said, I personally do not see him playing in the NBA someday.
Good stuff, guys. So let's wrap things up here, and let's give our predictions for the game and what to expect. I'll go first. I think we see an extremely, extremely close game, and I'm even going a huge stretch here. I think this game is going to go into overtime, and I have Syracuse pulling it out. I think the fact at the end of the day they have home field advantage and they're playing at the Carrier Dome. And what I've seen from this Indiana program is, yes, they play great defense, but I don't know how they can shoot from beyond the arc. And I think with Buddy Boeheim and Joe Girard, I think at the end of the day, they're going to be able to, step up and make their shots. They haven't been, so consistent this season, but the fact that they're playing on national TV, as well as the fact that they haven't been playing well, I think there's going to be some more extra motivation there. And that's why I have Syracuse pulling it out, 72-70 in overtime.
I'll flip the switch there. I'll go Indiana. Obviously a little biased, but I think IU pulls it out. The defense has been there. I think shooting, that's the question. And I don't know if they can shoot to keep up, because it's a big difference playing in the Carrier Dome versus Assembly. But I'll still stick with IU. I'll go 74-70 final score.
Yeah, I like IU as well, but I also think that whoever shoots the highest percentage from three-point land is going to win this game. The first true road test for IU, so I think this is a big leap forward if this team wants to, play in March and be able to compete in March. I think this is one of the games you'll be able to look back at and say, okay, that was a game where they played really well. But whoever shoots the highest three-point percentage is going to win this game. Hopefully that's IU. I'm a little biased, but I'll go IU 77, Syracuse 73.
All right, how about you guys on Syracuse side of the ball?
I think I'm going to take Indiana. I think Indiana. I think something just isn't clicking about the Syracuse team right now, and it's just going to take more time for them to kind of sort everything out. So I'm going to go Indiana 80, Syracuse 75.
Yeah, I'm a little torn. The Syracuse team definitely isn't clicking, but we have seen them kind of been able to click before. Again, super small sample size so far. We're 6 games into the season for both teams. If this team played 10 times, same environment, like the Carrier Dome tomorrow, I think Indiana takes 7 out of 10 of them. However, I think that it's going to be one of those 30% where Syracuse is going to take this game. I think Cole is going to go off for a big game. He needs it just for his confidence and for this team to do well. I think I'll go Syracuse 82, Indiana 73.
All righty. Yeah, so I mean, I think we can pretty much, write it in the book that it'll be a close game. I don't see this being a blowout unless, there's one of the teams is just completely, off their game. But yeah, if you guys want, the game is going to take place at 7 p.m. on ESPN2. It's tomorrow night. Make sure you catch it. It's one of the most historic matchups in all of college basketball. These two programs do not play a lot. The last time they played was in 2013 when the Syracuse Orange beat the Indiana Hoosiers when they were the 1 seed. And going back to that, the Hoosiers beat Syracuse in 1987 in the national championship. Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for doing this, and let's see how this turns out tomorrow night. Thanks.